Today's guest at the Rock House is none other than Tim Henwood. If there was a word to describe Tim, it would be rock royalty in Australian rock. Tim has been an integral member in some of Australia's largest bands, but has also forged a successful career in his own right and with his new band, Palace of the King. Tim, it is an absolute pleasure to have you at the Rock House. How are you, mate?
I'm great, Jock. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. Before we go through some of the exciting things that you've done, mate, I just wanted to take you back to your early childhood, mate. And can you tell me what actually drew you to the world of music?
No, I can't tell you because I don't know. My mum reckons that it sounds like a hippy dippy story, but my mum believes that when I was still in her belly, they went to a wedding, and and the band was loud, and everyone was dancing, and I was bouncing around in her belly, and she said she reckons that was the moment. So I don't know. Maybe she's right. I don't know, but I definitely just gravitated especially toward guitar from a very early age, 4 and 5, and yeah.
So you started off at a very early age, then, still in the womb, according to your mum.
Apparently, yeah. Well, I started lessons when I was 6.
At 6,
and that was from me hassling. I was hassling because I wanted to start learning how to play guitar. So mum eventually gave in.
That's cool. Can you remember if there was a particular artist or anything that really drew you to the guitar as well?
No, not early on. Obviously, as I got older, I started getting into, Rose Tattoo and AC/DC and Kiss and and then my brother is 4 years older than me. So as I became I started coming of age, or in my early teens or even 10 years old, my brother had all these great heavy metal and hard rock albums that, like this great record collection. And that's how I was luckily fortunate to have an older sibling who had that sort of taste in music. And so I'd just sit, whenever he wasn't home, I'd be in his room listening to his vinyl records, and I loved it.
Mate, what were some of the go-to records at that point?
It was basically, I just liked anything that was hard rock and anything that had guitar in it. So, my brother's record collection had everything, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, all the greats, basically. And then as I got older, I started branching out a bit more, and I started getting more guitar-centric. So I got more into Hendrix than my brother was, and then I found Stevie Ray Vaughan and local great guitarists like Diesel and Ian Moss and all these great guitarists that are in Australia, and obviously all the guys in Rose Tattoo and all the guys in AC/DC. But I was lucky because I had this great record collection, and he had more money than me because he had a job. So I was able to listen to all his records on his great record player that he had, which was a fantastic record player.
Mate, that's where I went wrong. I didn't have an older brother who I could steal records from. I was the older brother, but unfortunately...
well, there you go. Well,
My taste in Megadeth and Wasp and, Guns N' Roses, it wasn't passed on to my brother, mate. So
right. That's a shame. Yeah, I remember Wasp. I remember being into Motley Crue when they only had Too Fast for Love, and it wasn't even on a major label. My brother had discovered them somehow, and he had the Too Fast for Love vinyl, and I loved it. It's like punk rock, and that was before they got big. I had my school bag at Altona North Tech, and with liquid paper paint, and I'd painted all the band names on there, Saxon and Wasp and Motley Crue, but the one thing that I held through from being a little kid was Kiss. And still to this day, I went and saw Kiss the other week. It was fantastic.
Mate, they just made rock what it is today, really, didn't they? I mean, whilst there was rock there, they put on that stage show, which
mate, the show is just incredible. Yeah, and you look back in the day, and the shows they were putting on would have been costing them so much money. I know I've got books on it here. They would do tours where they would lose money because they wanted to put their show on.
Yeah.
No one else was doing that. Obviously, they were selling, millions of dollars in records and merch. So it wasn't their primary source of income. I'm sure they don't do that these days.
No. Mate,
But things are cheaper now. They put on a great show in Melbourne when I saw them.
Yeah, fantastic. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see them again on our shores, but
No.
they do have. I think the first time I saw them was on their farewell tour in 2000. When was that? 2001, I think it was.
Yeah, right. That's funny. First
Yeah.
time you saw them on the farewell tour. Isn't that funny? And here we are 10 years later.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Mate, you obviously have a great foundation and great inspirations there from your brother's vinyl record collection, but you formed your own style. When was the first step for you in a local band? What age were you there? What were you doing? Covers, originals?
My first band was a band called Sapphire, and it was connected to my brother and his mates because they all were into hard rock and they wanted to put a band together. Yeah. And my brother experimented with playing drums, but didn't ever follow through with it. But some of his friends wanted to play, and they wanted to put a band together. And I was kind of the only, I don't want to say real musician, but I was actually a kid who could play my instrument and had lessons.
Yeah.
And so I was lead guitarist. I was 12, and we started doing footy clubs and then like Battle of the Bands in pubs around Melbourne and stuff like that. And I was lucky because I was in a band with all of these older guys who were 18, and when I was 14, they were 18, so they all had cars and they were all sort of responsible. And I was allowed to go into the pubs as long as I had a chaperone.
Yeah.
So usually it was my brother that was the chaperone, but it was, so I started quite young.
So Sapphire, you can't get a more metal name than Sapphire.
No, you can't. We used to play some of our own songs. I was already trying to write songs back then, and then and we also had a few covers in there. We had a Metallica cover in there and an AC/DC cover, a few things like that in there.
Awesome. So, mate, obviously you're a very accomplished guitarist, but you're also a fantastic vocalist in your own right. In these early bands, were you doing the dual duty of guitar and vocals as well?
No, I was actually really, really nervous about being on stage.
Yeah.
So I would get really nervous, and so I couldn't even sing backing vocals at that point. I just put my head down and played my guitar, and the singing came later. I was wanted to write my own songs and front my own band, but I really didn't start getting the confidence for that until I was 16 or 17. Yeah. And then there was another young guy in Sapphire called Tony, and he and I started putting bands together when we were in our late teens. That's when I started singing, and I just slowly but surely belted my voice into shape at playing, with loud bands, playing our hard rock stuff, and I had a few lessons with Jamie. Oh, what's his name?
Not the Jamie who was a massive vocalist in his own right. Jamie Redfern.
Jamie Redfern.
Yeah.
I feel bad that I stumbled over that, so please edit that bit out because I'm still in touch with him. But yeah, I had a few lessons with Jamie, which was fantastic. He's such a great singer.
Yeah.
But it really sort of didn't apply to what when you're listening to Master of Puppets, it's sort of hard to get Jamie to get where you're coming from. You know what I mean?
There's a bit of a contrast in styles between.
Yeah. Jamie. I had the same thing with my classical guitar teacher.
Yeah.
When I first went in there and asked him to teach me a Kiss song, and he just looked at me, well, what are you talking about? I don't do that. I don't know how to figure that out. And what are you talking about? We're here to play our sheet music today. And then I
Oh,
would do that.
Yeah.
And I'd come in the following week and say, I learned that song. And and how did you do that? I don't know. I just figured it out.
It's amazing. Amazing.
Pretty funny.
But Tim, I am going to do you a favour. I think somewhere in my father's vinyl collection, he's got 1 or 2 vinyl records of Jamie Redfern. So you don't forget that for future interviews, mate. I'm going to dig those out for you and send them your way.
Yeah, awesome. I feel so bad about forgetting Jamie's surname.
I'm sure
It's only Jamie Redfern, for God's sake. Traveled the world, huge pop star. It's a little bit before my time, though.
Yeah, no, massive. We're going to fast forward now, mate. Probably, if I can call it, your big break came around 1999, where you joined a pretty big Australian band called Superjesus for their second record. How did that come around?
Well, I had sort of established myself as a bit of a gun for hire sort of young guitar guy around Melbourne. So I'd played with Nick Barker and James Rain and Mark Seymour, and I had my own band at the time called Plasticine. We'd had a bit of success on Triple J. And then, so when I'd heard the Superjesus were looking for someone, and I reached out to their tour manager, who happened to be the sound guy from Nick Barker and the Reptiles, who I knew through playing with Nick.
Yeah.
And I just said, hey, just not sure if that's a thing, but I'm interested. And then, and so Nick, who's Nick Marsden is his name, and Nick sent Sarah and Paul from the Superjesus down to a Plasticine gig. So go and check this guy out. And yeah, they came to the gig and liked what I did, and we all got along really well. And then before you know it, I was in the band.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, you joined the band for their second album. They had a pretty good writing process already established between Sarah McLeod and Chris Tennant. But you've come in to record their second album and contributed a lot of songs on that second album as well. How did you find, entering into that strong established partnership and carve your own way into that?
It was fine. I feel like I'm probably, if anything, I'm almost a songwriter before I'm anything else. So okay. I just thought I was certain that Sarah and I'd be able to write some songs together. It didn't worry me. Chris Tennant had left the band, so Chris and Sarah weren't writing anymore.
Yeah.
And there'd been a middle period where Sarah had written a few songs. They tried a few things, but they really never got any steam up. They never got rolling. So when they asked me to join, Sarah and I just started writing songs together, and we were very prolific together. And I think I'm pretty sure Gravity was the first song we ever wrote together. So we just we're on a roll straight away. We were off, and
we've just lost your video again, Tim. So if you can turn that video back on. The viewers just don't want to see my face on this interview, mate.
It's what it is here we go. Someone's trying to ring me. Got me back. There we go.
We're back. Thank you.
So it was just basically Sarah and I in my flat in West Brunswick in Melbourne. We spent all night writing Gravity, and by the morning we had the song, and we were quite excited. And from there we wrote lots of songs, and we all sort of put that Jet Age Together record in a pretty prolific fashion.
Yeah, you're right. Jet Age did come out and reached number 5 in the Australian charts. Gravity itself, arguably one of the Superjesus' biggest songs as well, but definitely the lead single from that album. The video track on it as well, it's just full of pure rock and emotion. So a great track, and I'm sure you're proud to be part of that.
Very much so. Yep.
Yeah. We do talk about genre-defining experiences, and in 2002, the punk rock / punk pop band, the Androids, were formed, mate. And you really hit the charts with the lead-off single, "Do It" with Madonna. The single itself reached number 4 in Australia, number 15 in the UK. It was awarded the best video for the year as well. What was it like, going from a pure rock band like the Superjesus into that genre-defining punk band called the Androids?
It was interesting because I'd come from the real St Kilda rock and hard rock scene progressively into the Superjesus, and at that time the Superjesus had gone, probably partially due to my songwriting, but also we evolved into being a more commercial band on the commercial radio, and then it flowed into the Androids, which got even more commercial, and we were on pop radio, and it was a wild experience to be recognized. You're walking around the streets of London and LA, and having kids coming and knocking on your door and laughing when you're answering the door because they can't believe you live there. And it was it was odd. I remember later on, not wanting to jump ahead, but later on I was over in London with the Rogue Traders, and I was getting recognized as much as Nat, if not more, because of I'd been there a few years before with
the Androids.
Wow. I'd just be walking around the streets and people would recognize me and bail me out and want to talk to me. It was nice. It was funny, but it was interesting, that whole thing, because the whole timeline was, it was around, as you know, it was around the time where the internet was just starting to really become a mainstream thing. And throughout the whole time with the Superjesus, I had continued with Plasticine. So Plasticine was still a small kind of indie Triple J band in the background, and we were, playing the SB front bar and all those kind of things. Then when it came time, I decided I wanted to leave the Superjesus, and I went back to Plasticine thinking I'll just go back to my band and we'll just keep going. And then we got a record deal because I'd written a few songs that people were liking, and a new record deal, I should say. And then once we realized we couldn't have the name Plasticine because someone else in the world had it, suddenly you were able to search. You couldn't do that before, So you would search Plasticine band and it'd come up somewhere else in the world, and we're like, oh no. Like, we were about to put a record out, and major record label wants to sign us, and we can't use our band name. So that's really the only reason we became the Androids. And the only reason it was technically the first record was because we couldn't use our old name. Otherwise, it would have been our, third or fourth album. It's kind of a weird story. Yeah.
The video for "Do It" with Madonna. What are the fondest?
It's so great.
It's still available on YouTube. When I was doing my research, I think I just sat down there and had tears of laughter coming out of my eyes, mate. What's your fondest memory from that video shoot?
Well, bizarrely related to what we were just talking about, we're there filming the film clip, and I knew it was going to be a great film clip. It was a great idea. It wasn't our idea. It was someone from the record company's idea. And when we saw the amazing drag queens doing their thing, it was just like, this is such a fantastic idea. But we still didn't have a band name. So we're trying to think of band names while we're filming the film clip, because we can't call ourselves Plasticine anymore.
Yeah.
So that's and we just filmed it in Port Melbourne, in near St Kilda there, and it was an amazing time. And also, that song, it was on the OC, and it was on K Rock in LA, and we were being played on the radio all over the world, and we went over to England and played on Top of the Pops, and
wow,
it was just such an amazing experience. And it made, and because it didn't continue, it didn't progress into being a big album and then the band becoming bigger and then another single and blah blah blah. It was basically all just revolved around that one song. it was hard for me to go back to London the next time. When I went with the Rogue Traders the next time, it made me quite sad, because I remember being right on the edge of what I always wanted from being a kid, which was being a successful musician on a world scale. I felt like we were this close to it with Madonna and the Androids, and then it just didn't quite. It dissipated. It got taken away, and then it was like. So the next time I went to London, I was like, oh man, I was so close, and it's so hard to get to that place. It's not. You can't just go, oh well, I'll just do it again. It's really hard. It's even harder these days, because it's hard to get. It's not harder to make music. It's easier. It's easier to release music. Everything's easier, but it's harder to have a hit, because there's so many options. People have got so many options, and you have to. And without a major label putting serious promotional money behind you, it's really hard to have a hit. And back then we had the major label and the promotional money, and we had people behind us. And then, but it was right at the crossover of music. It was right, it was right around the same time as when Lars and the Metallica guys were in there.
Hey, this was around the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we were at the time. It was something in the realm of that song was being downloaded illegally. It was something in the realm of 50,000 times a day. So wow. It was just outrageous. And I remember speaking to, we did a gig supporting In Excess back then, when they had John Stevens, coincidentally, was singing with them, and the Android supported. And I remember speaking to Andrew Farris backstage, and he said to me, I feel bad for you that if you had had a hit like that back in the 80s when I was having my hits, we'd be in the Bahamas right now having this conversation,
Yeah, exactly.
It was a kind of a moment of it sort of everything came into focus, and wow, it's just the world's changed. And that was right at the start of it. Now it's just fully, even this conversation to some younger crew, Gen Z crew who are musicians, would be thinking, I don't know what he's talking about. It's just like, because I was at the end of the music industry being all about physical CDs, and it was just a whole other business.
Mate, I do remember that Napster period quite well, and how the public made an absolute outcry when Metallica come out and said this is not right.
Amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They were like the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, they were hated, weren't they? And but they
just ridiculous. They saw where it was going.
Yep. And I'm sure the music industry now, if they could turn back the time, they'd be fully behind Metallica and Lars in particular.
I totally agree. And it's not that they would have stopped streaming. I'm sure but they would have set up their own streaming platforms.
Yeah.
It would have been, okay, well, if you want to listen to a Sony record, you go to the Sony streaming platform, or the Universal streaming platform, or the Warner stream. Like they rather than doing that, they just said, no, CDs are fine. We'll keep selling CDs. That's where the problem lies. Not that we ended up with Spotify, which I love. I'm just the record company's just lost control of it. And now the record company's making a fortune again. But they're just not passing it on. They're not passing on the publishing royalties, So the songwriters aren't getting any money.
Yeah, because their competition pays not much either, right? So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that it'll all sort of, find a place.
Yeah, definitely, particularly for the future of music as well, right? It's really important to support artists who are producing quality music.
Yeah, well, it affects the quality of the music. If you can't live making music, less people will do it. That may not be a bad thing, but there might be some really good people who can't do it. They can't afford to do it. You think about Neil Young or Bob Dylan. in this day and age, without a record company to support them, and what record company would sign them? It's just bizarre just to think about it.
Yeah. No, you're right.
They wouldn't get signed, even though they're incredible and they should be signed and they should be supported, artists like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It was strange days indeed, mate. Nonetheless, the Androids did have some good success. We spoke about Do It with Madonna. Coincidentally, did Madonna's team actually get in contact with you guys to have a chat about how she was video?
Yeah, they did. And she said that she passed on a message saying that she loved it and thank you, and it was a compliment, which was really nice. And funnily enough, we did Top of the Pops. That we were on the same episode as her. So we obviously both had a hit in England at the same time, and we were both on. But Madonna's segment was pre-recorded.
Yeah, okay.
Which that was a bit of a disappointment. Otherwise, we would have met her in person.
Yeah, damn shame, mate. Damn shame. We spoke about the Androids, 2 albums. The Androids debut album reached 36 in the charts, and then 2007, Out of Your Mind was also released. At this point, what was the decision with the band?
Well, after the first album, things started to become pretty clear that we didn't have the support of the record label anymore. And then the record label went out of business. So we didn't have a record deal. I wasn't sure what to do. I got asked to join the Rogue Traders, who were also victims of the record label going broke, because we were on the same label previous to that. So I joined the Rogue Traders. I was playing with them. And then at one point, because the Rogue Traders was a Sony act, I played my demos to the manager of the Rogue Traders and the A&R guy at Sony, and they loved them. They loved the demos. So they decided they wanted to put out the second Androids record. So that Out of Your Mind came out on Sony. And then, you know, we had an experience with Sony, which is pretty classic, where the first single wasn't a hit. And then, so they didn't get behind the album. They decided to not really go ahead with it much. I think they sort of put the album out later, but it was just one of those things. And I, as the artist, you know, have to accept some responsibility, because I pushed for the lesser of the 2 singles, the one that wasn't as commercial, to come out first, so that we could, you know, I was trying to reestablish credibility, which is a mistake. And it wasn't a hit, and maybe that's why, but either way, it didn't work. And so we toured with Pink all around Australia for a few months. And then at the end of that tour, was a lot of shows. That was a fantastic tour. At the end of that tour, the song didn't really chart in the top 10. So the label lost interest, and I was fine. The agency, our booking agent, lost interest. It was really hard to get. Everyone wants to jump on board when things have got, you know, their own life and they're bubbling. But if they're not, and it's a hard sell, the same people are the first ones to just go, oh, it's too hard. So we got a lot of push, a lot of it's too hard. And so I just decided we just needed to chill out for a while. And I sort of went back to being a gun for hire for a while, and eventually put Palace of the King together. And then obviously the Androids never split up, but we stopped for a while. And now the Androids has sort of come to a point where it's more of a, the audience have grown to a point where they're older and more mature and in their 30s, and maybe even pushing 40 now. So it's more like a lot of people come out to reminisce and think about their childhood and have a good time. And it's come full circle now.
Yeah. You never lose touch with the music that you grew up with, right?
No, that's right.
Yeah.
And it was a big teenage audience, that band.
Yeah. Before we get on to the Palace of the King, because I'm really excited about the stuff that you're doing with there, but let's just briefly talk about the Rogue Traders. So the Rogue Traders, the peak of their success was with the release of Here Come the Drums. You joined the band at this point and got involved in the songwriting for their third album, Better in the Dark, the lead-off single, I Never Liked You. What was that experience with the Rogue Traders like? I mean, they were massive at that point here in Australia and abroad as well. What was it like joining them?
It was fantastic. I was good mates. I was good mates with Smiley, their manager, and James. So, and at one point before Nat joined, I'd even had a bit of a sing, and they were sort of auditioning and / I was trying out just to see what would happen. Just in the studio, it didn't work, obviously. And Nat was so perfect for it. So it just evolved into this thing where I just fell into it. And then it was great fun because they're all great friends before that and still to this day. Smiley, the manager of the Rogue Traders, was the tour manager of James Rain when I first started playing with James, and I think I was only in my late teens. So he'd come from England. He was tour managing. That's how I met him. So I've known Smiley since basically he's an English guy since he's been in Australia. And so it was just fair. I just felt like it was just great hanging out with family, and we got to do some great stuff in England and Australia, and headlining big shows like the Palais Theatre 2 nights in a row. And
wow,
really good, just great. Nat's great. James is great. Cam's my best mate. So it was just really good. Just a great experience.
And what a great experience it was in 2010 with the release of Hearts Beat as One. The Socceroos picked it up and it became
right. I forgot about that.
There you go.
What was it like
hearing that song blare out of stadiums across the world with the Socceroos running up?
It was great. I'm not very much of a sport person, so for me, I was a little bit nonplussed by it. But I was glad to at least have the band out there and getting some exposure, and I was hoping that it would I was hoping that it would generate some more activity.
Well, mate, I've just lost my next 5 questions because I am a bit of a soccer / football fan. So let's just
feel free to ask them if you'd like. I won't have many answers for you. I didn't even remember that had happened until you just brought it up. That's how big a deal it was to me.
It happened.
Yeah, I remember it. I think we made a 3D film clip at the time. Yeah. It was like I think it may have even been the first 3D film clip. And Sony was selling 3D TVs to people at home and never took off.
No, they never, for some strange reason.
Interesting, isn't it?
Well, I must admit, I did have a 3D TV and I got quite dizzy watching 3D movies, mate. So
did you? Yeah, right. Yeah, never really took off.
So after a brief hiatus, 2015 rolls around, you guys, as the Rogue Traders, hit the stage once again and find that chemistry is still there. The band is still touring now. What can we expect next from the Rogue Traders?
At the moment, it's just about live shows. We're almost at the point where it's similar to the Androids. It's similar timing, just a few years after the Androids, just where people are now starting to get to that age where they want to go out and reminisce about their teenage years. So I think that it's only going to get stronger for the Rogue Traders. So as time goes on and people get older and maybe they're old enough to be able to leave their kids at home and just go out and reminisce about being 18 again, I think that'll end up being more and more of a thing. As far as new music goes, I'm not sure. Every now and then we have a go at a new song, and it's just everyone's got so much on, especially Nat with her TV career.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where if we get excited about a song, it'll come out. So, but at this point, I don't really. For a band that's had 10 top 10 singles, it's not really a huge issue.
Yeah, The band itself, before we move on to your own exciting stuff, mate, but it does, the Rogue Traders just do go across a lot of genres. As you know, I'm a bit of a metalhead and a rock fan, but in that live setting with your guitar playing, it does attract us metalheads as well. You know, from the stuff, come the drums. I actually had that CD as well as the follow-up, Better in the Dark, and I think a lot of that comes down to your guitar playing, mate. So keep the metal dream alive.
Thanks, mate. Yes, it's funny that. Well, it's the same for me. I mean, I'm the same as you. I'm a metal guy, a hard rock guy, and so I'm standing there with my Marshall and my Les Paul playing those at gigs, thinking, "Oh, this is great." I mean, this could turn into a heavy metal song if we wanted it to, but it doesn't, because that's not where James wants it to go, and that's not what Nat does. But it's not the point. It's still got there's for me. I just feel really authentic playing those riffs. I just feel like here I am rocking out.
Yeah. Well, mate, we do talk about, you know, having our roots fully entrenched in hard rock and heavy metal. And in 2012, you formed your own project, Palace of the Kin, which to me, it really brings out that 70s classic rock and even the 80s metal into one project. What was your driving force to, you know, get together a group of guys to form Palace of the Kin?
It was funny because I had subconsciously, and even consciously, I was open. I just said to myself, you just got to be open to everything. Something will come along that you want to do. Don't force it. And I got a message from these young guys who wanted to put a band together, and they wanted to be like Aerosmith, and they wanted a Steven Tyler type character to be their singer. And they approached me, and I said, "You mean you want me to play guitar?" And they said, "No, we want you to sing. We heard you sing with Bruce Kulick from Kiss at the Corner Hotel, and we thought you were great." And they were all in their early 20s at this point. And I said, "Okay, well, this is not. I'm open to everything, and this is not what I thought was going to happen, but let's give it a go." And then I just fell in love with it. As soon as I heard their music, I wrote the vocal parts, recorded it, just went, "This is great, guys." And they went, "Yeah, let's do it." So we just did it. That's how the band started. Amazing.
Mate, and what better statement in 2013, the self-titled EP come out, the follow-up, Palace of the Kin 2. But really, the band made a big statement on that first EP, particularly with the lead track, Free. It really defined what this band was all about. How did that process come out, and how was Free selected as almost your anthem going forward?
Yeah, it's funny that's the first song we wrote together. It's something about me and the first song.
About first songs, mate. You know.
Yeah, it's like, well, I think what I just need to do is just keep doing different projects. Yeah, and just write one song. Yeah, that's it now. It's never going to get better than that. But yeah, it was the first song. So they had all of that music written.
Yeah. And
I took it into my studio and spent a day working on vocals for it and sent it back to them. And that's how we knew we were on. So from there, we were away. But they had that. The boys had that instrumentally. They had that first EP written. So, but they were just instrumentals. There was no singing on them.
Yeah.
And as you could probably imagine, try and imagine those songs without the vocals. They're still great.
They are.
So
they are.
Yeah. So I was inspired. I was listening to go, this band's great. And I wasn't even in it yet.
Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah, it just started like that. And then from there on, every time it's evolved over time. They've had, you hear about people having purple patches with their writing. And sometimes, you hear that I'm not comparing this to the Beatles, but sometimes you hear about, there was a point where George Harrison was really, really prolific, and John and Paul were more inclined to sort of go, "Oh, we need George. Otherwise we haven't got an album," So with these guys, that's happening as well. It's just, I'm there all the time. But I'll find that some albums are more focused around one of the other guys writing the music, And so it's evolved over time. You know, it's not burnout, but I think sometimes just people get less inspired, or yeah, they just feel less inspired. So, and there's no problem because you've got 4 other people in the band and they're all open to letting other people have a go. So it just ended up being evolved into the last album was primarily Shawnee Johnson, who plays keys and guitar now in Palace. So he, the last album was primarily focused on him, and that was a gradual thing that happened over time. And then the new album, it's probably still a lot of Sean, but everyone, you know, Anthony, our bass player who joined 2016, I think.
Yep.
You know, he's got a great song on this album that he and I wrote together. And Cam, who plays drums with us now. So yeah, and we've got Lee Madden back, who was in the band at the start. So he's come back into the band now. So it's a constantly evolving thing. My manager says that he thinks of it like the Allman Brothers, or in Queens of the Stone Age, where it's just a constantly evolving thing. And, you know, he said one day we'll probably have 10 people in the band for a record. Who knows? But it's an evolving thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's nice to be part of.
Look, it certainly is. And, you know, after those 2 EPs in 2015, Whitebird, Burn the Sky, 2016, correct me on my pronunciation here, but Valles Marineris, how do I go?
Yeah, Valles Marineris is the way I say it. I'm sure if I was Spanish, I'd say it differently.
Yeah, I probably would too. And in 2018, Get Right With Your Maker. All of them, like, they deserve to be in any hard rock fan's record collection, because each of them are a classic in their own right.
Thank you.
There's been a couple of singles released over the last few years, one with Rusty as well. How did that collaboration, Rusty Brown from Electric Mary, how did that collaboration happen?
Yeah, that was a great one. Well, Rusty is a very great old friend of mine, and I've always loved his voice. And we used to play Space Truckin'.
Yep.
The band Palace used to play it live, and the boys used to just rock it. They used to have such a great version of it. So when we were in the studio, we were actually in the studio recording the first EP when we did that. And I just said to him, hey, why don't we just do this while we're here? And I've got hard drives full of things with different, you know, Angry Anderson and James Rain and Sarah McLeod and like just Road Trade. It's all sorts of stuff on hard drives. And then I remember finding that and thinking, wow, this is really good. Why did we never put this out? And so we then we put it out, and I love it. I love how our voices work together. He's such a great singer, Rusty.
Oh, isn't he ever? A friend of the Rock House as well. Hopefully you're watching, Rusty. Space Trucking, it's a Deep Purple cover. It's available on all streaming platforms.
It is, yep.
A must to have in your collection as well.
Mm.
And you're right, you and Rusty work so well together on that. The live album has just been released as well. I'll let you pronounce it. Live in España. How did I go?
Live in España. It's that's just the way the Spanish say Spain.
Yeah.
So, and I just thought I was trying to acknowledge. It was like a tip of the hat to them to say it their way, spell it their way, rather than live in Spain. That was another thing. I reckon I've got probably 20, maybe more, live Palace of the King shows recorded on multitrack.
Yep.
I'm a bit of a what's the word? I just love, if ever there's a chance, if someone says, oh, I can record the gig for you, go, yes, thanks. I love it. And then I don't always even listen back, but I get it, and I put it on a hard drive and I put it away. And that was a show that we were negotiating a record deal, and the record company we were negotiating with asked if we had any extra content that they could include in the deal. And I said, I think I've got some live stuff here. So I went ahead and mixed that record, the Live in Hispana record, and the deal fell over. It didn't go through that way. So we didn't need it. And then I just put it away again and thought, oh, it's all, and it was mixed and mastered and sounding great. And then when with the lockdown and everything during COVID, I spoke to our current label and I said, you know, it'd be nice to put something live out because we haven't played live in 2 years because we can't. Every time we book a tour, it gets cancelled. Like we had so many tours get cancelled on us throughout COVID. And it was really starting to get to me. And I know a lot of other people had more serious problems than my problems, but it was just getting on top of me. And I just thought, let's just put a live record out and then at least people can remember what the band's like live, you know. And it was, it's like this live multi-track that we had from a gig in Spain. Sounded great, put it out, reaction was huge. Like really good streaming numbers and people were really excited by it. And I was like, well, that was a nice feeling. It was nice for us to be productive also. And I love having Shawnee there on the cover. And when he was young, he's only 19 there, you know, and playing the keyboard that his dad bought that keyboard for him. And his dad, you know, has passed away since then. So there's just this whole, I just felt really good about the whole thing, about the karma around it all, and it did really well. And so the streaming numbers are really good. And I think it was just for me, you know, purely selfishly, it was just a way to remind people of what a great live band it is. You know, there's no kind of doctoring. It's just that's how the band sounds live. It's pretty impressive, in my opinion, even though I'm in the band.
Right. The sound is so crisp on that album. Again, it deserves to be in everyone's collection. Tim, we spoke passionately about vinyl earlier on in the interview. When do you think we could get our hands on some vinyl from Palace of the Kin?
There's going to be new vinyl early next year. So we've got our new albums finished. It's mixed and mastered.
Awesome.
We've got a new single coming out in November 18, I'm pretty sure is the date. Okay. That'll just come out on streaming platforms. And then the new record will come out next year and that'll be on vinyl, of course. And there's obviously anyone who doesn't have any of the past records, you can find them on vinyl on the internet. There's lots of them. And the one big thing that we're always very proud of with Palace is the artwork. You know, there's always
the artwork, mate. It's that 70s classic rock art cover, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Remember, you'd walk into a record shop and you'd buy an album based on the cover alone, and this really fits that mold with what you're doing.
Yeah. And all of that artwork up until Get Right With Your Maker and including Get Right With Your Maker, all of that was done by Christian Kamenides, I think is how he says his name. He's a tattoo artist. So right. And he was a friend of the guys before I was even in the band. So and he used to do tattoos on Harry. I'm pretty sure he's done some tattoos. So he's done all the artwork. I really love the artwork.
Yeah. I wasn't aware that Palace had all of their stuff on vinyl available on the web, mate. Where can I find? Is that just on the Palace of the Kin website?
Probably, yeah. I think going through the website would be the way to the best way to find it. I think some of it might be sold out, but yeah, there'll be reissues at some point.
Perfect. Mate, maybe we can catch up for a coffee or something else, and I can give you those Jamie Redfern vinyl records.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Mate, before I get on to a very important concert series of yours in 2021, I just want to throw a couple of names at you and just pause me at any stage when you want me to stop and share a memory. But you've worked with all of these people, and I'm just going to read off the list. James Rain, Mark Seymour, Ross Wilson, Renee Gayer, Casey Chambers, Joe Camilleri, John Stevens, Delta Goodrum. Mate, that's a who's who of everything that's been important in Australian rock from the last 30 years. What?
Not quite, but it's funny because the John Stevens thing came about. It was such good timing, you know, like I was saying before, I was at a point where I was feeling a bit disheartened, you know, as we all were. I'd had so many tours on again, off again, on again, off again. I was trying to stay positive. And then I got a phone call about John's tour in December of 2021. And then it was like, do you want to do some gigs with John? I said, yes, before they'd finished the sentence. And then I said, I will send you an email. I got this email and it had 80 gigs on it. And I just went, I'm in. Like, don't even, that's it. Count me in. So since January 15, we did one gig in December. And then since January 15 to now, we've done more than 80 gigs.
Wow.
And it's been such a great thing to come out of this, what we've all been through, and to be so just like busy and forging ahead. And he's such a powerhouse. Like he, you know, we could do 6 in a row, no problem. He doesn't even hiccup. And his band are all great people and great musicians. And I feel like again, just fell on my feet, like just came out of COVID and just fell on my feet and went, well, here we go again. And now I've been flat out with him all year, and it's been so good. And man, that guy can sing.
Oh, look, he definitely can. But seriously, that must have been a huge mental and physical challenge for you as well. After, you know, Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world. And all you could do for 2 years in Melbourne was sit there and stare at 4 walls. You've come out of lockdown and gone on the road doing 80 gigs. Was that a massive challenge?
Yeah, it was. I was, for a while, we were all tired for a while there, but everyone handled it really well. And by the end of it, because it got a bit quieter about 2 months ago, since John moved on to the noise work stuff, we've only done a handful of shows. We've got a handful left for the rest of the year, but it's there. John is primarily focusing on noise works at the moment. So next year, hopefully he'll be busy again. But yeah, it was both. You're exactly right. It was a mental challenge. Like I felt weird getting on a plane. Just being on the road again. But you know what the strongest emotion I had was excitement. I just couldn't believe. I felt like a kid in a candy shop. I was just like, yeah, thank God it's over and we're back at work. I was just point me in the direction of the stage and I'm there. I don't care. I've got to drive 10 hours? No problem. Show me where the gig is and I'm there. You know, and every time someone would complain in the van, because I'm a non-drinker, so and the other guys drink a bit. They're all right. I love them, and everyone gets along great. And I don't do it out. I've got no kind of philosophical reason to not be a drinker. I just do it for my health. But so I just kind of, anytime someone would be a bit hungover and in the backseat and start complaining, I'd say, boys, do you remember a few months ago where you were sitting on the couch at home, and even if you wanted to walk the dog, you had to have a mask on and you weren't allowed to go more than 5 k's from your house? And then they'd go, you're right. You're right, Timmy. Yeah, you're right. We had to stop taking it for granted. I'll never take it for granted again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I ever did. I always loved it. I've always loved it. You know, you'll probably find this silly, Jock, but you know, when you're traveling, you stop at a little motel on the side of the road, Mission Brown brick, built in the 80s or the 70s. Mate, I just feel so at home.
Yeah, everyone would kill for that 2 years ago.
Oh, I just feel so at home. I just get in those little motel rooms. They go, and the crappy TV and the biscuits with the kettle, and I just think, because this is what it just takes me straight back to being a teenager when I first started touring, and how excited I was to be out of the house and being independent being treated like an adult, you know. And so I still relate to that. I just love it.
Yeah. Mate, your contribution to Australian music, cannot be underrated. It's just been an amazing career, but I think it was really topped off in May of last year, where you held a series of gigs in celebration of your 30-year contribution to Australian music. How did that come around?
I just was encouraged by some other people to do it, and it was just like, why don't you play some songs from your career and tell stories, and it never occurred to me to do that. And I'm not much of a look back and reflect kind of guy with my music. I'm quite sentimental as a person, but with the music, I'm just like, that's what Palace is. I'm just forging ahead, and looking for new experiences and new things to do. And I'm excited about the future. So it was a really nice thing to be asked to do, and it went really well. And I was surprised myself. I just thought, it wasn't until I thought about it that I thought, gee, I've done a lot.
Yeah, mate.
And then to be able to just tell the stories about it, and to start like to start my touring life. Prior to that, I hadn't really done much touring, and then I get taken on tour with James Rain, and I'm a teenager, and I'm still living at home with mum and dad. And so I was upstairs in my bedroom at mum and dad's house learning the James Rain set, so it's just, and from then it's just never stopped. And I'm still friends with James to this day. We still write and record, and I haven't played in his band in quite a while, but I have off and on over the decades. So it's, I'm fortunate to have been able to play with some amazing, iconic Australian artists and just some great people.
Mate, I must admit, I normally do around 2 to 3 hours research on a band when we interview, but mate, you have caused me many sleepless nights, just because the research required for the amount of work that you've done has kept me up for all hours of the night. It's just an amazing career, Superjesus, the Plasticines, the Androids, Rogue Traders, Palace of the King, the stuff that you're doing, with other artists as well. It's just a huge accolade, mate, from the Rock House to have you on here. You are rock royalty in Australia, mate. So,
thanks, Joe.
What's next? We've obviously got that Palace LP coming out very soon. You're still tying on with the Rogue Traders, but for Tim Henwood as an individual, what's next?
I'm just focusing on doing the best I can at playing guitar for John, and focusing on this new Palace of the King record at the moment. Those are sort of the two priorities for me at the moment. I feel like Palace of the King is something I could do, quite easily, for the rest of my life. I mean, as a 70-year-old bloke with a beard, I could put a Palace of the King record out if the other guys want to do it, I don't know if John will still want me to play guitar in his band by then. He'll probably have a bunch of young dudes by then, because John never seems to age,
Yeah.
But we'll see. It's the music industry being what it is, Jock. You just never know. Sometimes you can't take anything for granted,
And that's right. You and I have still got to write that one song too. Don't forget.
Exactly. Yeah, one song. We no more though.
One hit.
Yeah, don't even bother with anymore. It's a waste of time.
My name's first on the record too, by the way.
Oh, you're pulling a Paul McCartney on me.
Just joking. Tim, absolute favorite, magnificent contribution. I am going to ask you one last question though. For a young artist starting in the industry today, what's the best bit of advice you can give them?
I think the best bit of advice I would give to a young artist is just to love what you do and work hard, and don't do it for the fame. Do it because you love doing it.
Yeah.
And then you can't lose, because even if you have to have a job to pay your bills, but you're playing your music because you love it, that's what it's done. You've actually done everything. That's all you need to do. I think a lot of kids get involved in, oh, is this song too long? Should it be shorter to be on the radio? It's like, as soon as someone says that to me, I start getting worried about, well, hang on a minute. Don't get me wrong. I know sometimes you have to think about the commercial aspect, but a real artist would just say, well, no, this is how it has to be. And this is how I created my art, you know. You know, I never thought about making money as a musician, but I just did it because I loved doing it. And I work really hard. And that's all you can do. And the rest will just take care of itself. But don't ever get in the music game to make money. Because it's just not there you generally.
Yeah. Look, that is consistent advice that some other artists that I've spoken to have always given. Be true to yourself, work hard, go in with low expectations, because everything else is just a bonus from there.
Yeah, and just do it because you love it. If you're just doing it because you love it, you know, I've never made a cent out of Palace of the King. We put all the money back into the band, but I do it because I love it. I just love it. And then I've got to do other things to make money. For me, luckily, other things are playing guitar with amazing musicians or making records with amazing musicians. You know, it's all music related. For me, I'm lucky in that way. But if you don't have the ability or the access to that, just do it because you love doing it. Get a job and then worry about whatever happens.
Tim, beautiful words. Look, on behalf of the Rock House, I really thank you for your time. That has been just an awesome insight to everything that you've contributed to Australian rock. So best of luck with the new record coming out with Palace, and hopefully we'll get to see each other on the road somewhere across the nation.
That sounds great, Jock. Thanks for having me, mate.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Best of luck, mate.
All the best, mate. Thank you.
Bye-bye.